Hello and welcome to the Overland Journal Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Brady, and I'm joined today by Josiah Roe. Now, Josiah runs a bunch of really interesting organizations, including the Journal of Lost Time, which is his digital magazine, beautifully produced, incredible images and storytelling. But he's most known for his event programs. So he runs Moonlander event. He runs events in Oregon and Baja and around the country. Josiah is really well traveled. He also travels with a Volkswagen Synchro. So we have a conversation about the events, how to develop community, but most important, we really learn about how Josiah has created a career that allows him to live and work from the road while he's seeing the world. So please enjoy my conversation with Josiah.
What is it about the backcountry? What drives us to leave a perfectly good road and head off into the wild? Maybe it's the promise of new experiences and discoveries. The allure of the unknown. That's why we do what we do. It's why we are a pioneer in building off-road, off-grid RVs. And it's what makes our Backcountry series models the perfect companion for a life of adventure. These vehicles feature off-road capability, reliable off-grid power, and freshwater capacity, plus multifunctional layouts that give you enhanced gear storage and workspace, and the comfort needed to relax in the kinds of places where our Backcountry series vehicles thrive. Take, for instance, the Echo, which introduces off-road camper van utility to a rugged yet spacious Class C. Or the Revel, the ultimate adventure-ready van, boasting up to 7 days of fully off-grid power. And then there's the Solus, a supremely flexible and thoughtfully designed camper van that has everything you need, and a few things you never knew you did. The right vehicle can open up entire worlds, but with a Backcountry series RV, no matter where you set up camp, you'll still find all the touches of home. Because in a world where less is often more, it turns out that sometimes more can still come in pretty handy. Explore our Backcountry series. Winnebago RVs, purpose-built for life beyond the open road.
Josiah, thanks so much for being on the podcast with me today. It's been something we've talked about doing for a long time.
Yeah, I feel like it's been a long time coming, but life gets in the way, adventure gets in the way, work
Well,
gets
I
in
think
the
the
way.
last time we were able to really hang out was actually in Oregon, and you had started a new event up there, and I just got to spend a couple days seeing what you do, and I was so impressed. I've always been impressed by the work that you do, but I was really impressed by the overall tone of the event. It was very relaxed, laid back. It felt very community oriented. I was also really impressed by the fact that there were so many people there that didn't know each other, which is not always the case. A lot of times events can be really cliquey where they really just kind of pull in the same people every single year. So let's talk a little bit we'll start off by talking a little bit about your events. So tell me, I think you're up to 4 now, maybe 5 events a year. So let's break them down.
Last year we did 6, which we did 6 2 years in a row. And that was, that about destroyed my life. It's, I jumped into the deep end of the pool for sure. And was in no uncertain terms, was very fortunate to see you at a nascent version of these events as we were still figuring out what they were.
And what was that one called? What was the one in Oregon?
Holy Toledo. It's
Holy
out on
Toledo.
It's out on the
And
Oregon coast. Oh, go
it
ahead.
was
Go
so
ahead.
neat. It was just so, it was such a pretty little spot. And
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't think you could have more than 100 vehicles there. Probably not. Right. Or maybe
No,
about that.
it can fit because we take that lot and we pack it. And now the Port of Toledo has been kind enough to give us the sort of adjacent parking lot.
I remember that. Yeah.
Um, yeah, we've maxed out. I think we counted at 241 vehicles we could do, and the last couple of years, it's pretty much sold out. It's hard to have an exact count on it because we've got staff and volunteers, and then some folks come for a day
Yeah.
or a night, or they don't
Yeah.
come until Saturday, even though the event starts on Thursday. So right around there feels like a good
Yeah.
number. And it's also just been a joy to have the event be embraced by the town. We go early, we sit in on city council meetings. They're all about the town being a van life and overlander friendly town. They want more
It
tiny
was.
homes. They're never gonna ban overnight parking. They're talking about adding in paid hot showers. Like it's like become like this happy thing that Toledo is using as an economic development driver for the town because it is a mill town, and they're looking
Yeah.
to how can we get more folks, and housing is a crisis in this country, and what can we do to make it easier for people to be here. And we love it
It
when all
felt that way.
these
Yeah, it really felt that way. And it was so close to go walk downtown, get a meal, had a great
hmm
little
hmm
breakfast at this little jamming little breakfast joint, super close
the
to the
timbers, man, place
that's
is a
it. Yeah,
trip.
that place was great. And then one of the things I really liked is that you're right next to the marina, and
Yeah.
and I love boats as well. So I'm walking through the marina, and there was this historic wooden
hmm
sailboat club, and
Yeah.
some of these sailboats were over 100 years
hmm
old, and
hmm
they were fairly small, but like they still had little cabins and stuff in them. And
hmm
it was just very cool. And when I got a chance to experience that, Josiah, it was just, I realized that what you were doing was not only very different, but it was very necessary. So that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast. I just want
hmm
people to know that there are other kinds of events out there that are much smaller in footprint. They're much more community like connected
hmm
experiences. And I think it's also, you've done a good job of not overhyping the experience or overselling what you're doing, which I
hmm
think some events can really do, or they can be too commercial. You've done a good
Oh
job
yeah.
of striking the balance. You've also been really careful with the
Try.
brands that you associate with.
hmm
So when it comes to events, what do you think is most needed right now? Like what is it? Because there's a lot of overland events in the country now.
Yeah. So, I mean, at its core, um, it comes down to, really on a personal level, but it's also, I would say, very much shared by what is now a team of very tightly knit folks, because now we've been through some battles, we've been through some
Yeah,
growing pains.
sure.
Fundamentally, it's a belief that, humans are kind of all we got. And it's a beautiful thing when we come together, and the events are how we show light in the darkness. We just say that. And one of our
Yeah,
taglines that we use for all the events is we go further together.
yeah.
Navigating how to do that has been a humbling and
I'm
a
sure.
constant learning experience.
Yeah,
One of the fundamental things in the design of these events and where we locate them is that they are not just a place for people that enjoy adventure and exploration via vehicles, whether they're awesome Land Rovers or a ProMaster or
yeah.
some rock climber took his mom's Astrovan, gutted it, and did a DIY kit. It's also deeply rooted and integrated into the place where they're held. So,
Yeah.
like in the town of Toledo on the Oregon coast, it's become very much a very food centric event. A lot of like local fishermen and oyster farm and the Oregon Coast Visitors Association and Travel Oregon have really gotten behind it with their sustainable seafood program. So for all of us who are sort of like on the road, we get to come and eat like kings and queens for a weekend of all this like fresh local seafood and
I
produce.
love it.
But
I
the
love it.
town's very involved in it. They come down and listen to all the music, and it's become kind of this blended thing. But that sort of framework exists even at an event like Toledo, which is one of our smaller ones, or our largest one, which is down and actually in Baja outside of La Paz, the capital of Baja California Sur, which is where I'm at right now, which will have something like 1,500 vans and overlanders, but then there'll be another
Oh, that's very
thousand
cool.
there'll be another
That's very
thousand
cool.
locals on top of it. Like, and there's an entire, I can reveal some of the stuff because I've been dealing with it every day while I'm down here. We have a lighthouse we've effectively rented, and we light it up with LEDs and lasers, and it becomes a big local art gallery from around the peninsula. All these artists kind of come in and set up. There's a huge food programming section with all these local chefs. And of course, they're showing off for each other and having a great time. And it's nice because we're on the Pan American, so we get already kind of like this internationally diverse group. There's always a caravan of Germans on their paid 18 months of maternity and paternity leave, 1 years old, hobbling around. And they have their beer night, which is a trip. Never go beer for beer with a German. We had a big French component this past year. They were hilarious.
Yeah, I love the French travelers because they just don't care. They're gonna have like 5 kids with them.
Yeah, do not care at all.
They'll be in like some little Renault.
Yeah, makes no sense.
Camper van that has already gone like across the Silk Road.
Yeah. It looks like it's been absolutely. Yeah, they just rolled right into center camp and just made crepes one morning and just
they literally don't care, which I love.
Yeah, they're great. They're great.
That sounds incredible, and
it's a great event.
It's
a really good event.
La Paz is a little bit of a sleeper for a lot of people. They kind of view it as that's where the ferry goes out of, but the reality is that it's 1,000 times better than Cabo.
Oh, it's not even comparable. Like Cabo is it's terrible. I hate it. La Paz is still
don't care for it personally.
No,
and it used to be that you could kind of escape, Cabo by going up the East Cape, and that's all now completely
slowly
done up.
changed. Yeah.
So La Paz is really, and there's a lot of actually places to go to, and there's an incredible route that comes from the north along the coast to La Paz.
And you got to have a 4x4 to do it. But a
little bay called San Evaristo, and it's just that whole area is incredible.
We had to move the event this year because where we were doing it before, which is Playa Tecolote, which is like kind of like the city beach for La Paz. There's a group trying to do a massive development project that leads all the way up to it with like condos and the rest. And our event was kind of caught in the middle because the developers didn't know if we were in their way. And then you've got like the nonprofit conservation organizations, of which we do a lot of work with. And so we were like, we're just going to move up that road towards San Evaristo and San Juan de Costa on a spot there that's just like amazing. So,
and some of those cliffs back in there have colors that I've never seen on the earth. Like it's like
there's
a painted desert right there. It's incredible.
Yeah, there's basically a quarter mile from where the location will be, and you'll be able to go to it from the event. There's this amazing hike you can do into this slot canyon where you get back in there and then you get all the crazy, the geological term for strata, that stratification with all different colors like that. It's just beautiful up there. And that's just like this, the start of it. It's like not, it's still another hour and a half.
You got me sold. When does this thing start?
January 9th to February 3rd. Sorry.
So you're doing some prep right now for it.
Oh, 100%. Like I'm in La Paz. I had accidentally double booked this call with another meeting, but it's nonstop because it's become such it's a very locally integrated event at this point. Like I have effectively a analogous event team down here made up of Paseños or locals, that you just kind of have to have. Like, I can't have
to solve
somebody
problems.
managing
For sure.
20 restaurants,
For
tours that isn't here to. Now, I know most of them, and I
Yeah.
spend 6 months out of every year down in La Paz because I fell in love with it a decade ago because it's walkable. It's really great for getting work done on a Vanagon, on the cheap.
I think we finally figured you out, man. You have hacked your way into this ideal little program, so that's awesome.
It's a beautiful city, and all the places we do our events are very. They've all been some of my personal favorite places to.
I think I'm going to block out January. You said January 9th through what?
January 29th through February
29th.
3rd.
All right.
Yeah.
I might have
You
to
should
block out
definitely
sometime.
come down.
No,
I've been bugging Tina and Brian about it. I'm like, get down here, you guys. And Ashley's always doing something, like.
I just need to do it because I want to do another trip all the way down to the, to Todos Santos. I've got good friends that live there, so
cool.
Ride a motorcycle down. It'd be great.
Oh yeah, there's a big moto camping little area. Because the event was at Tecolote and it was donation based, which is why I always lost money on it. Hopefully not this next year. It was hard to know who was coming, and there would be 40 adventure riders come barrel in, and they set up their little tent city back in the dunes, and yeah, it was great. It's great. Yeah, it became so big, so you can't meet everyone. And
it sounds incredible, and we could spend the entire hour talking about why all the events are amazing, because you've got the Moonlander one in New Mexico, and that's all about the celestial bodies and the night sky and beautiful remote area, and there's
science oriented,
and a lot of overland components to that. So, where do people go to find out about all of the events?
Well, you can go to thejournaloflosttime.com and click on or you can go tjolt.com and hit the events button in the top right.
Okay, perfect.
And you can see the list in there. There's also some that we are like, for example, we started a couple years ago because the women on our team and in the community were like, we want a women-only gathering that we wanted to do. And I was like, okay, let's go. And a little bit of my naivete, because I'm not like an influencer in the sense I don't talk into my phone and do that kind of thing. It's only even recently I've started doing my podcasts and stuff like this. I sort of thought that me as a man wouldn't be sort of seen as like the person running that event, but it's still the women had a great time with it and have had a great time with it. But I decided this year, we decided as a team to give it to Summer, who's the chief marketing officer at Storyteller Overland.
Oh, nice.
And it's a break-even event. It's not one that was, making a ton of money. So it's not like I was watching just on the financial side of things, but it was I wanted to see that really owned by, women who are leaders in our space. And so we built this thing, and it's in a really beautiful part of Southern California.
What's the name of that event?
A Rome of Our Own.
Okay, and then about what time of the year is it?
It was in March, but they're going to move it to April because Baja's gotten so popular, and now, just based on my guesstimation, and I also know just from the numbers, more and more women feel safe going down there.
Yeah,
and it's just so perfect. It doesn't really start getting hot in the not fun way until April. And so we effectively canceled our April event in Bisbee, which is a great town. And it was a very successful event, but
I love that.
It was very spread out. Bisbee's amazing. But the event was held in different parking lots all throughout the town. So it made it difficult to have a center camp. And also just it was became a very drinking oriented centric event with all the bars opening early. And I love a drink as much as the next person, but suddenly being responsible for hundreds of drunk people wasn't exactly what I signed up for. So
we just had a team road is literally constructed to run people over.
Yeah, it's just nuts.
The road through town is literally made with these super narrow, curbs and you can't see around the corner. So I could totally see drunk people getting run over there on a regular basis.
Everybody's on their e-bikes or one wheels totally, or all their goofies or their little 50cc, whatever. And I'm I don't want to feel, yeah. So we decided to effectively cancel that one, move the women's only one there,
Oh,
where
nice.
we're still like the big marketing promoter of it. And then we're moving I need to check the dates. We're moving our event called the Caravan, which we did in June this year. We're going to move it up to May just to really try to avoid the heat wave, because this year we got nailed with 95, 100-degree days, which if it weren't for the lake we had there, it would have been impossible.
Yeah.
So I just want to kind of try to hit the temperature just right. It's in Naturita, about an hour west of Telluride on the west slope. It's a gorgeous location.
Great
It's called
spot.
Camp V.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spot.
And so just wanted to get the weather and the timing there right. And of course, it's less than a day's drive from west, so it makes it easy for folks to kind of, which was a lot of the feedback from some of the brand sponsors and exhibitors.
Make it easy to go from one.
Yeah, they're like, hey, can you put it a weekend or 2 weekends after west, so we don't have to like, drive all the way back and then drive all.
Sure.
You know how it works. So sort of been shifting things around.
Maybe going back in time a while, what got you interested in travel to begin with?
That's a good question. Spent my 20s building my first company, then hit reset on life and moved to San Francisco. And coming from, this is not meant to be a knock on the eastern half of North America, but oh my gosh, is the western half, I think, in 99 times out of 100, throw a dart at anything west of Denver, and it's gorgeous and
pretty special. Yeah.
Yep. And so started up back when I was a younger and probably a 30 pounds thinner man. Was doing a lot of trail running, and you start trail running in the hills overlooking the ocean in Marin County, and you meet someone, they're like, you can go to the top of mountains. And then, I always enjoyed traveling, and then it just really got going. And I had always looked at Vanagons and thought they looked very interesting and cool and ostentatious. And then
they are all of the above.
Yeah.
And slightly terrifying all at the same time.
Yeah, very terrifying. You got to be a bit of a status masochist. But I was taking a Thanksgiving break, and I was like, well, a friend of mine was like, well, go to Maui. And I was looking at Airbnbs, and somebody had listed a Vanagon there, and I was like, man, I'll take a Vanagon. I like something about the idea of, I'll get a van and just drive around an island and stay on beaches. Now, this is before #van life and all of that, and I got the Vanagon, and it was all of that. And
so you rented a Vanagon in Hawaii, and then you came back and you bought one.
Yeah, so I got the Vanagon, and then I did I was only supposed to go for a week, and I went for a month.
And I think yours is a synchro, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's not.
But you put some crazy motor in it, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. I've got it was air cooled. I converted it to a 1.8 turbo in it, so it hauls. Nice. But I've got a bunch of. You got like the limited slip and all those sort of fun things on it. So it
looks like it's got a little bit of a lift, so you could at least do some.
Oh yeah. It's lifted, and I got Fox shocks, and there's some other stuff I could do with it. I definitely beg some of the, I'd love to get John and the team at Agile to do a really dope suspension for VWs. Like they'd make a killing. But especially with them being good friends with my buddy Chad of Living the Van Life, who started out in a Vanagon also, but now is in a Sprinter. But it was a trip to watch. And then I was dating someone who lived on the Front Range, so I was bouncing back and forth between San Francisco and the Front Range, and I got tired of flying, so I bought the Vanagon, and that just really started changing things, because I knew the first rule of any good road trip is to stay off the interstates, and just started seeing ridiculously,
there's a lot to see between those two spots.
Yeah, I stumbled across Valley of the Gods not knowing it was there. And I remember going, Valley of the Gods, I wonder what that is. And I hung a left.
And you probably did that at a time when no one was really there. I had a favorite camp spot in Valley of the Gods, kind of towards the north end of that little loop. And every time I went there, it was available because it was also like you needed a little bit of ground clearance to get back to the campsite. And now every time I go there, it's taken. Like it's completely changed.
Yeah.
So
especially on the I mean it's I mean I still get spots, but I don't assume to get necessarily my favorite one, and I certainly don't expect to look out across the valley and be the only one there. And like when I rolled in, it was, this was like late March and early April. So there were these thunderstorms rolling through at sunset.
Wow.
And the sun was like shining underneath the clouds, lighting up the rain, all golden. I kind of got teary eyed and started crying.
Of course.
Like, this is
course.
absurd. And that was just like, okay. I'm going to do this and leave tech. This is before remote working and all that sort of stuff was.
What did you do? What did you do in tech?
I was a product designer, effectively, and then made it into management. I was running teams of designers and all that sort of stuff. I liked the more nerdy stuff. Like I did a bunch of stuff in ag tech, and then designing software for people to. There's been a big consolidation in the farming. Like there's consolidation in every industry, really, but for big farming, instead of a farmer working on 200 acres, it's a farmer running 200,000 acres. And how does he manage that? And
right.
It used to be with Post-it notes and a lot of walkie-talkies, and now with modern enterprise software, there's a much better way to do it. And then
they even know where the machines are with GPS and everything else.
Real-time stuff, and even programming what fields and their inputs, outputs, all that sort of crazy stuff. So, and then I did that for a bit, and then I got offered a gig at a company making remote devices to control oil and gas wells. And I thought, I actually would like to understand how the oil and gas industry operates. And it really was a sort of thing where it was an old man in a white truck who would walk up to a gas well and literally listen to it to be able to tell what was going well with it or what was working with it and not, and make a few adjustments right there. So there's a big modernization happening because that sort of level of control leads to an unbelievable amount of, the bad pipelines that leak oil and gas exist all over our country. I mean, if you just Google like map of oil pipelines in North America, it'll blow your mind. That need to be modernized and fixed.
Make them safer. If they're going to be there, you might as well
100%.
Make them safer. Yeah, sure. And a special thanks to Dometic for their support of this week's podcast. I have personally used their fridges on multiple continental crossings and find them to be lightweight, durable, and efficient. Dometic has just upgraded their CFX5 line with their new VIP insulation panels, which improve efficiency and reduce power draw. They have also introduced a variable speed motor to reduce unit noise by up to 5 decibels. That makes a big difference when you're sleeping next to the fridge. The USB port is now 18 watts for even faster device charging and an even more refined fridge design and color. The CFX5 will cool down to minus 7 degrees Fahrenheit and has a 3-stage low voltage cutoff to protect your battery while running on either 12 or 24 volts DC and 110 or 240 volts AC. These fridges are durable and even won our most recent Overland Journal Editor's Choice Award. Find out more information at dometic.com.
Yep.
Well, that sounds interesting. And where
it was fascinating.
Where did you grow up? Where in the
country? I was born in Detroit. I only did a minute there because my dad was lucky enough through the GI Bill as a non-vet to be able to go to college. First in his family to do that. And then Wisconsin for a minute, but I was in northeastern Pennsylvania till middle of high school. And then
that's a beautiful spot, though. Pennsylvania,
old dead coal mining town. Yeah, it was a trip. It was a great town. Well, I mean, it was great from as a kid because there was no concept of not getting on your bike and riding all over town. Like we just went everywhere. It's like, where are we going to play? Which park do we want to play basketball in today? And we'd all bike, the 5 miles over to it was just a lot of fun from that standpoint. There was no, the free range kid thing was just part of my
It was
growing
still a
up.
thing. Yeah, it was still a thing.
Yeah. And then went to Northern California, which was definitely a life-changing thing.
I can imagine. I can imagine.
Yes. Yeah. When you're 16, right in the middle of high school. Yeah, it was a trip. And then I went back east for school, spent my first 10 years, started a digital agency with some friends. And then in the early 30s hit reset and went out to San Francisco, finally got the job working in tech, dabbled with the Googles and Facebooks. But at that point, you still had to commute out of San Francisco to work there for the most part, with a few exceptions. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be in a real city that was walkable and magic. And I still actually have my apartment in San Francisco. I just have a friend in it, and it's still where, when people ask me where I'm home, it's where I get my mail and all of that.
Yeah,
even though I'm
sure.
on the road all the time. I love that city. People.
It's an amazing, especially on a motorcycle. I think it's just people underestimate San Francisco. There's also just there's a lot of bad press. That's actually it's only reflective of a very small area of the city.
Yeah.
Very isolated. It's actually not at all reality.
Incredibly contained. Yeah. It's like maybe a 10 block by 10 block area. And
if that, and I didn't even, I ended up walking basically right by it and didn't feel unsafe or anything.
I mean, it's intense, but
it was intense. And it's good for people to see that too. So.
Yeah, like the homeless thing. I mean, like you'll go to fast forward to when I was leaving tech, and I started out doing a lot of travel photography and videography, because that's what people started wanting to buy my photos, and I was like, oh, I can get them to pay me to do that. Pretty much every destination marketing organization or tourism board I've talked to has at some point brought up the issue and said, we have a real problem with homelessness here. And it doesn't matter whether you're in Breckenridge, Colorado, or Florence, Oregon, or Salem, or Bend, or it doesn't matter. Like it's just a thing that exists across the country. And it's funny to me that they talk about it like it's somehow more unique in San Francisco, because that's not been my experience, whether I'm in Austin or Houston or
any place that the weather is temperate, there's going to be a homelessness problem.
Yeah. So. And then there's like a migration thing, we saw it in a couple towns in Montana in summer, it's just, you don't want to be you don't want to be homeless in Phoenix in the middle of August.
No. Yeah.
It's 120 degrees.
It'll be a short stint. Stint. Yeah. So that's one of the things that I always found, really compelling about you and your organization is, even though you run these very community oriented events and you do come across as this very genuine traveler, behind the scenes, you have some really strong business acumen, and you have a really good understanding of both brand and how to tell stories. So I think that one of the things that I wanted to cover on this podcast was just that concept of that people they see Josiah as the guy with the hat hanging out with the Vanagon, but you've done a lot in your life that has put you in a unique position to be able to run this business. What are some things that you think that people should know about you and about your business that maybe they don't?
Well, the business started out with me deciding I wanted to get out of tech in San Francisco, because it's a little bit soul stealing if you're not at the right company. And I think that's why I picked very science oriented places to work. Like it was a company called Granular that was focused on ag tech, and another one that was kind of focused on resource extraction. I liked to geek out on things, but I started out just as like a freelance photographer and videographer, and I always, because I'd run a business in my 20s, had I understand the importance of knowing what you're selling and the ROI for who you're selling to. And I looked around and saw who were feasible customers for me, and I knew I was never going to be Alex Honnold
Yeah.
Getting sponsored by North Face to free solo El Cap. And then having had a van again, what I started to run into as I was working with tourism boards is that because I was just a freelance photographer and videographer, what they wanted me to do was very prescribed. It was like shoot the photos and videos of the top 5 hiking trails in our area. And I don't mind that to an extent, but it wasn't how I liked to travel, and I didn't like the restraint and of my sort of editorial perspective on how I like to go to a place and be there for a month to get a sense of the people and personalities and the culture and the rhythm and the vibe of a town like Bisbee or a town like Tucson or Laguna Beach or Oceanside
or La Paz.
La Paz. It's like I like to feel what it is to be there and to meet folks and why they love it and what are the local watering holes, but also like what are their favorite trails and things to do. And so it was a summer I was doing a project for Washington State Tourism. I was sitting there with some friends in Seattle, and I was like, well, I think I should just start my own magazine or something like that, where I can kind of have editorial control. And talking with a friend, like, well, it's about a kind of experiences where you lose track of time. You get so immersed in the experience. And that's where we came up with the Journal of Lost Time,
which is a great title. And it's a beautiful magazine. Thanks. It's just, you've done such a great job of curating that content. And it's certainly a reflection of your own interests, which I think is what's so important. I mean, it was the same with Overland Journal. I wanted to create the magazine that I wanted to read.
Yeah. And I've looked up to you guys.
I was hoping that other people would want to read it too. And it turns out that they did. But
when I was doing it, I was like, well, what are the ones that I really look up to? And yours was on that list. And I was like, absolutely. But just slightly broader. Yeah. Anyway, I was very much like, hell yeah, Overland Journal. But even just like, when I had a good friend do all like the identity design, like I wanted it to feel timeless.
Yeah.
And almost like an academic journal. Yeah. Anyway. And I still haven't gotten a print edition done, but it's just because I don't have damn time. Like we've got the content. Anyway, that's another story. But
hopefully.
But yeah, the event sort of happened while on a production in Baja for several brands who were sponsoring a production trip to do a story about a road trip in Baja. And we kept meeting this is 6 years ago. And we kept meeting other overlanders at the time. Like the pandemic spike hadn't happened.
Yeah.
It was just starting to get going, the van life thing. There wasn't the rush of sprinters and all that stuff yet. I knew of Tecolote, and I was like, hey, let's all just meet on this beach. And then like 60 rigs just showed up via word of mouth. And the events just took off and became their own sort of business unit thing that I'm still heavily involved in. But ideally, I'd love to, on a personal level, get back to being more involved with the Journal of Lost Time. And there's still the content studio, which is Granite Light, which is run by my business partner, Nate, who's up in, almost all of the content we produce in the studio on behalf of brands and tourism boards also goes out on the Journal of Lost Time and the various media channels that we run, which are numerous Instagram accounts and email list of 80,000, et cetera, et cetera. Then we have the events. Then we have something recently we purchased called Simpler Ways, which is a marketplace for a lot of vehicular-based adventuring. And we're in the middle of a redesign of that. And
nice.
Because we were doing ticketing sales for the event, we just, instead of using something like Eventbrite, we just suddenly pumped all the ticket sales through that site, which was instant massive traffic spike and the ability for our sponsors to upsell them. Like, yeah, be a sponsor of our events and we'll put your product in the marketplace. And when they buy tickets, we're like, hey, do you also want to get this Anchor power station or these Max Trax board, et cetera?
Yeah, so sure.
There's some good horizontal integration, maybe.
No,
and in some cases also like
a nice big upper funnel that you're driving down to those events,
but
equipment sales and everything.
Yeah, so I've had to play I've had to learn how to be a CEO,
Yeah.
and tell that bigger story, even though I very much miss sitting and writing and taking photos and telling a story about a very specific place, which I'll get back to. Once I get the right people in the right places. Hey, you pulled it off, and I figure if you can pull it off,
Some days I did, sometimes I didn't. It just
maybe I can get there.
It depends on the day. Absolutely.
Oh, I definitely look at you and I'm like, man, Scott pulled it off. I got to be able to do it. I'll get there one day.
If I can pull it off, I know you can. That's for sure. One of the things that I wanted to make sure we covered too is, your travels and the time that you spend really kind of slow traveling in places. What advice would you give to travelers to really be able to go a little deeper, where we're not so much kind of that stone skipping across the surface? What are some things that you've learned that helps you dig into a place?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of naturally an extrovert, so that's a little bit of a cheat code for talking with people. But really, it just takes that kind of bravery, like kind of getting over the fear of talking to another human being. And in a very real way, 9 times out of 10, other human beings are feeling just as awkward around a bunch of apes. We're a bunch of anxious apes. And if you just give them a smile and ask them, like, I mean, when you're in a place like Baja and you're standing there on the beach and there's somebody who doesn't know you, like, I guarantee you they're feeling the joy and the beauty of the place, and just go, isn't this place beautiful? And that gets the conversation started. So it's just kind of taking that first step. In other parts of the world, like, the biggest cheat code I've found is the local dive bar and talking to somebody there and the bartender. Like, it works.
Just don't hit on anybody's girlfriend.
Yeah, definitely don't do that.
That's how people get in trouble in dive bars. It's like,
only happened to me once.
Exactly.
In Toledo.
You got the whole town after you then.
Yeah, I almost had the entire local volunteer fire department after me. They were like, she's got a fiance. Yeah, I was like, oh no. Charlie's like, hey man, I think you got to get out of here. I don't know, what did I do? It was great. That's it. And if you're religious too, you can hit the church thing on Sunday is a great way to meet folks. But that's like also like that gets at one of the reasons for the event's existence is the loss of the third spaces. I don't know if you're familiar with that concept of the local park, the neighborhood bar, the bowling alley, churches, and these places that aren't work and they aren't our homes, where we could actually meet and gather and form new connections and build social capital and meet people. And so that's a problem that exists with the way we've designed most of the living space in our country, being a vehicle-based thing where everything's spread out in suburbs, and our cities for the most part are not walkable, with some exceptions. And that definitely was exacerbated by the pandemic. Suddenly we're all holed up in our homes. I think, as somebody who lived through it and experienced it, I think we were naive in the way we thought of the internet as a way to bring people together. I think we've all come to see that maybe it was a bad idea to let anyone say anything to everyone all of the time. There's some downsides to that.
So human beings are supposed to be in little tribes of 30, 40, 50, 60 people, where there's a consequence to that kind of behavior. And like, that's very recent history. Within the last 100 years, people were still in small towns and
I mean, as a species, we're still learning how not to kill each other on a regular basis, just to we're still doing it. But we've got a lot of years of a lot of generations to go through, I think, before we adjust to whatever the heck this new thing is.
I also wanted to take a brief moment to thank all of you for listening to the Overland Journal podcast. By listening to this podcast and subscribing to the Overland Journal magazine, you're supporting our employee-owned and veteran-owned business. Impartial reviews and in-depth content like this would not be possible without your support. If you enjoy the podcast, I think you'd really love the print magazine as well. And 100% of that subscription price goes back into creating the content like you're listening to right now. And as a special thank you for your loyalty, we're giving 20% off any subscription. And that even includes our special lifetime subscription, which includes numerous lifetime-only benefits. You can go to overlandjournal.com and use the code OverlandPodcast at checkout. Again, that's code OverlandPodcast at checkout, and that'll give you 20% off. I sincerely appreciate your support. But I think it also speaks to why your events are so important, and it speaks to why I really wanted to have you on the podcast, was just for people to know about what it is that you're doing and why these events feel very different. You know, you're not talking about thousands and thousands of people. Your biggest event is around so you said around 1,500 people or so. So, and some of them are smaller. So
yeah, most of them are smaller.
Yeah, it really gives the opportunity for people to connect if you're looking for something different, because now the industry is big enough where there is a bunch of different offerings, and depending on what you're feeling, you can connect in with the ways that you want.
Well, we aim for a real balance between like we really push for the idea of kind of no spectators, but that's, an ideal, which I unequivocally stole from Burning Man. But the idea that a lot of the programming at our events are driven by attendees who have a fun thing that they like to do. Sure. Like there's this fantastic group of ladies who drive Storyteller Overland Sprinters, and they do traditional like knitting, and they've got like the old wheels to like spin their own yarn and stuff like that. And they like set up and they'll do like a class about that. But then there's, nomad speed dating that a guy named Dylan and a woman named Grace really love to do. But then we also have the brands there, like Max Trax will do a safety and recovery course, and like Anchor will do all sorts of stuff on like whole home power systems and how they're transferable into your vehicle if that's something you want to do. Like we've got a lot of fun stuff like that. And then our music at night, we try to hire, like our event Moonlanding that's coming up. We've got a couple of really awesome local New Mexico bands who also happen to be from the Taos Pueblo up in the north. Now, where the event's held is Navajo, which Taos Pueblo are not Navajo. It's two different countries and two different languages, et cetera. But both really awesome bands, and we really try to like kind of connect into the state in that way. But there's sort of we try to have a nice balance. Like, and what I tell the brands when we're talking to them is like, you're part of this community. Like, you've built your business on it. Like, this is your customer. And by the way, and like every single one of them a qualified lead. Like, I'm not anti-commerce at all, but the expectation is that, come out from behind the table and be part of the community and
interact,
give people a reason to stand in front of you for an hour. Talking about what you're doing, and so, there are some brands that really get that, and others it's much easier to think about things in terms of their 10 by 10 booth and kind of just standing there. And I think you and I have seen that kind of commercialism slowly push out the soul of some of the events that we really, really liked. I know I've experienced that at a couple of the bigger expos, and that was sad to feel that happen, because I went to meet folks like you and some of my heroes in the overlanding world, and to see them not embraced quite as much as they used to be is sad. But anyway, I'm kind of rabbit holing. Apologies, but that's what we try with the events too, even with the brands, is to make sure
it's working. So. Well, let's talk about how people connect in with what you're doing. So how do they find you on social media? Let's go through your website again. How do they read the Journal of Lost Time?
Yeah, everything is the Journal of Lost Time. We're definitely multi-channel. There's the website. There's the Instagram account, which is very active. Obviously on Facebook too. There's a pretty big Facebook page and stuff like that. There's the email list. Every other week, the newsletter goes out. It's usually a blend of articles that we've pushed that week, or sometimes it's one from a few years ago. Stuff about the event, whatever the next event is. Now, some of the products that we're doing and reviews on simpler ways.
Nice.
Slowly as we're doing that, and sometimes we'll promote. I mean, if it's an event that is community centric in nature, like Northwest Nomads or Rebel Rally or something that, like we'll hype it. Like we've got no problem promoting that, even though, we're, because it's awesome. And I've got friends who do it and this thing's really dope. But anyway,
it is super dope.
It's super cool. And we've been fortunate to have some friends who do it, then come teach navigation courses at some of our events, which has been really cool. Tammy Joe and some others. But yeah, that's the best way. You can find the start of everything at the Journal of Lost Time, and that'll kind of push you out to all the various channels. I mean, hell, we're on Pinterest, always pushing photos and videos and stuff like that. I mean, every channel is a little different, so you have to learn how to adapt it to that, and that audience. Haven't fully gone all in on the TikTok thing. It's hard because I love long form.
Yeah, sure.
Storytelling. That's why I love Overland Journal, what you guys do,
and it's okay if everybody's going right. It's okay to go left. I mean, it's just fine to
our average time per article is like right now a little over 3 minutes. Like
perfect. Yeah, so that's
who does that? Like the average time on it. We're it's not a huge audience on the website, but like our completion rate on swipe throughs for like a 10 slide Instagram carousel post is like just under 90%. Like who has that? Like,
that's
awesome. It's because there's a story being told, and
that's right.
I don't know. Like I'm learning how to be a businessman.
I think you're doing a great job, and I'm
we're
really
in the black,
proud of,
so it's not too bad. But
there you go. No, I'm really proud of the work that you do, and it's why I wanted to have you on the podcast. I just wanted people to be aware of your events. I had an incredible time at your event. I'm looking forward to going to more in the future, and I just really encourage people to check out what you're doing. And it's an outlier in an industry. So
I just want, I want the folks that love what they're doing to come and talk about it. Like we'll put them on stage. I mean, Moonlanding's fun because it's the first time that we've got like a main stage, but then we have a design and engineering tent and then a health and wellness tent. Because there's always an army of yoga and breath work and sound healing folks in every community.
Yeah, you got it. They all make a difference.
Why do they want to make breathing work? It's the one thing I do without thinking. But
and yet somehow it makes things better.
No, man, they love
well,
it.
Josiah, dude, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
I really appreciate everything that you do. I encourage everyone to check out the Journal of Lost Time, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you in La Paz sometime in January.
Yeah. And if you're in Prescott after Moonlanding, I'll swing through, maybe grab a beer or something.
Yeah,
I'll be
that sounds
wandering
great.
over to San Diego. But cool.
I'd love to see you. That'd be great.
Awesome, man.
Thank you.
Cool.
I appreciate you being on the podcast, and we thank you all for listening. And we'll talk to you next time. Thanks, man.